I'll be speaking with Sigal Kook Avivi, who is a human rights activist and a law student. She's currently in Tel Aviv, and we'll be talking about the demonstration yesterday about what is happening with Africans in Israel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So tell us about that rally yesterday. In what city was it, and what went on?
Okay. Yesterday, mostly Eritrean community. We have both Eritreans and Sudanese here in Israel. We have a small community of asylum seekers. Actually, we only have 35,000, and 5,000 children have been born in the 10 years that they have been here. And the Eritrean community, since the Israeli government is talking about forcefully deporting them. Up till now, we had deportation. I'd like to talk about that too. But now the government is talking about deporting forcefully the asylum seekers to a third so-called country, mainly Rwanda and Uganda. So the demonstration was in front of the Rwanda embassy in Herzliya. And the call was the call to Rwanda was not to buy, as it is, slaves, or not to buy asylum seekers from Israel, not to buy off the asylum seekers from Israel.
So how many people were at the rally? What kind of signs were there?
Okay, I think there was somewhere around the communities itself, the Eritrean community came a little bit with women and children also, but I think somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500. There was also a lot of, not a lot, but let's say maybe 100, 200 Israelis that also joined them, students and so on. The signs were, we are refugees, refugees are not for sale, sailing refugees to Rwanda is a crime, we are Eritreans or Sudanese, you can't return us to a place where we do not belong as Rwanda, all kinds of signs like that, signs that they had signs of pictures of their friends that were murdered because the deportation has been going on for almost 4 years already, and they had pictures of their friends that were murdered or killed or whatever in the process of the deportation. There were even pictures of those that their heads were beheaded by ISIS once they were in Libya and Sahara Desert. Those were the type of the pictures. They also had pictures of the boats that crossed the Mediterranean, and a lot of people from the community have drowned in these boats while they were trying to, on the route of fleeing from Israel. The second, we called it, it's the second, journey they're doing, because the first journey they did from their states to Israel, and now they're doing a second journey, a forceful journey that Israel is sending them, and a lot of people have drowned and died on that journey.
I saw some video, and there was 4 or 5 people in chains. Could you explain why?
In chains, yes. This is we decided, my partner and I decided to the whole idea with the deportation, I call it the quiet deportation. Nobody sees what's happening because they are sent either from the detention centers in the Negev quietly to the airport, a group of 4 or 10 or something like that, and nobody knows, nobody sees them. And my partner and I decided to give a picture to the fact that these people are being deported, and not only are they being deported, they're being sold twice. For the first time, they're sold from Israel to Rwanda, because now the claim is that Israel pays $5,000 for each asylum seeker that is sent to Rwanda. So that's the first time they're being sold, and the second time they're being sold in this journey. There's no way. I mean, there's no way out for them. They end up in this journey. They end up reaching in Libya, and we saw the pictures in Libya of people being sold in auction slaves, and we also we have even a video of one of the asylum seekers, a Sudanese asylum seeker that was in Israel, and he reached Libya, and we have a video of him being tortured. Mm-hmm. So the idea was to give the Israeli public is like, it's very convenient for them not to know what's happening. So we actually wanted, to put it in their face that this is what we're doing to our asylum seekers. It's not, it wasn't an imagery of something. This is what's really happening. They're being sold in auction slaves.
Okay, for our viewers, I want to talk a little bit about geography. So Herzliya, I believe that's north of Tel Aviv.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
The city where the demonstration is Herzliya?
We did this auction selling 3 times. We did it once in the middle of Tel Aviv on a very busy Friday afternoon or noon, where people, Friday noon, people go to the shopping malls and whatever. We did it in Dizengoff, in the big shopping mall near. So people were like, a lot of people coming out of the mall, and they were like smack on their face. They were shocked. We did it a second time in front of the Knesset. There was a meeting of a few parliament members that decided to talk about the issue of deportation, so we did it there. It was a very cold January morning in Jerusalem. It was freezing, and they were standing there without their shirts for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and they were very, the asylum seekers really wanted to do it. And we did it the third time, as you saw yesterday in the rally in front of the Rwanda embassy.
And that's north of Tel Aviv, that city?
Herzliya is a city. Yeah, it's a city. It's like a very well-off suburb city. Yes, Herzliya is really a very, how do you call it, a rich city or whatever.
And then a little African geography. So Eritrea is over in the east. Sudan is more up north.
Both of them. And
then they're going to send them to Rwanda and Uganda, which are far away.
Yeah, the whole idea is the fact that this is one of the things that had in the signs as well. There are asylum seekers from Eritrea and Sudan, mostly from Eritrea. Since Israel knows it cannot send them back to Eritrea and Sudan, because Israel has deported whoever it could from the Africa in these last few years. They also deported, by the way, asylum seekers from Eritrea and Sudan directly to Eritrea and Sudan. But they have this whole way of hiding it. But it did happen in big numbers, by the way. But the idea is, since they can't be sent, so a prime minister found a third country that can receive these asylum seekers, which is Rwanda and Uganda. But it is a lie. It's a complete lie, because in Rwanda, none of the asylum seekers stay. Within 24 hours, 48 hours, they are actually forcefully deported out of Rwanda. They have to pay for it, by the way. And in Uganda, there's a different system, and also they're being pushed out. And me and my partner that created this demonstration, we've been to Uganda. We've been there on October 2016. We went to interview a lot of people that we knew from Israel that had to do through this journey. And what they had to tell us was it really was scary. People are really given, I think the minute they step on the plane here in Israel, they're being transported to a smuggler system that's semi-official. It works with the government, I think, and they really have no choice. They're in their hands from the moment they step on the plane.
So let me get this right. They're sent to Rwanda with some story that they're going to be treated as refugees.
Right.
Rwanda pushes them into Uganda, and then
within 24 hours.
And then Uganda pushes them out, and they go north. And a lot of them end up in Libya?
Yeah, the route, the smuggling route is very, very, the people that we interviewed in 2014 and 2016 and 2017, it's the same route. The smugglers deport them from, actually smuggle them out of Rwanda to Uganda within 24 hours, 48 hours. The same route every time, whether it's Eritrean and Sudanese. We hear the same stories, exactly the same story. It works like clockwork. Then they're pushed from Uganda. It's not as forcefully as it is from Rwanda. Normally they're pushed to Juba, which is in South Sudan, where they cannot stay, of course. And on the route, it's very dangerous. Many people die on that route. Then they're pushed from Juba to Khartoum, which is Sudan. And it's very dangerous for them to be in Sudan. They're very afraid of speaking Hebrew, both the Eritreans and the Sudanese, of course. Sudanese have fled from Sudan. Then they have to take the route through the Sahara Desert. And it's very dangerous. A lot of people die in the Sahara Desert, whether it's from hunger or they give them like small amounts of water with petrol so they won't drink a lot. So a lot of people are robbed, raped, die of starvation or whatever it is. And then they enter Libya. Sometimes they're kidnapped by Chad militias, but they mostly end Libya. Then they're sold from warehouse to warehouse. There's different warehouse in Tripoli that they're actually sold from one warehouse to another. They're sold by the fact that they have to pay their way out. And then up to last year, some of them succeeded. Those who succeeded the journey and didn't die through the journey are being put on boats. And as you know, many, many people died. I think 5,000 people died last year in the Mediterranean. And then, by the way, when they reach Europe, the journey does not end because a lot of times they are fleeing from Italy, because Italy is not very welcome. So they're actually, once they reach Italy or Greece, they continue to try to reach up north. So they go through a very hard journey, and a lot of them pay with their lives. But now what's happening is that the European Union is paying millions of euros to Libya, Tunis, and Egypt to prevent people coming out of their shores to Europe. So if the numbers were last year, the numbers were 87,000 people crossed from Libya to Europe. The numbers this year, this half year or this past year, was only 37,000. I mean, they kind of stopped the continuation of the journey between Libya and Europe. And what happened is that at least a million refugees from all Africa, not only Eritrea and Sudan, and not only those who are doing it through Israel, are being stuck in Libya. And what happened is that Libya is now doing whatever it wants with these human beings, selling them as slaves, trafficking them for all kinds of, harvest or organ harvests. They're being tortured.
Wait. Organ harvesting? What? Explain that.
Yes. You have a lot of human beings in Libya. You can do to them whatever they want, and people are being taken out of their kidneys or whatever it is, and their organs are being sold. And there's also
Horrific.
a lot of torture that's going on just for the fun of it, and also the fact that what they're doing is they're doing exactly these refugees have went through the Sinai Desert. Mostly they are trans. They were tortured and extracted. They were tortured in these. They would call the families and torture them while the families would here to get ransom money. So now they're doing it, which is with everybody. They're doing it also to the Darfurians and everybody, and they're videoing these horrific things, and they're sending this to the families, so the families will pay as much whatever they can in order to get these people, at least to prevent them from being tortured.
Unbelievable.
Let
me get some background, though.
Yeah.
There's a convention relating to the status of refugees, and doesn't that require that an individual state his claim, try to get asylum? What does Israel do with this convention? Does it just ignore it?
Israel does not. Israel does not abide by this convention. Israel has no system of checking the asylum seekers. A lot of asylum seeker requests were put in, but Israel has decided whether it's rejecting them almost automatically. It's especially these Eritreans. They're claiming that they're not accepting them as asylum seekers because the invasion of the army, so-called, which we know that Eritrea. It's not an army, it's slavery for all their life. But Israel is using that to claim that they're not asylum seekers. And with the Darfurian request, there was a secret report prepared by the Minister of Interior, and it understood that the people coming from Darfur are probably asylum or refugees, but it wasn't shared. This report wasn't shared. So none of the Darfurians are not getting an answer for their asylum seeker request. So there are RSDs, what you call their whatever it is. So, and actually, Israel has not accepted anybody as an asylum seeker. Nobody has been recognized as a refugee. There are only 10 people in Israel. You have to understand, refugees started coming in 2006. There are only 10 people in Israel that did not receive a refugee status.
10 people got the status out of how many thousands?
And then, no, I really want to explain. They didn't even get a status. All they got was a temporary status. Okay, This is they didn't even get they didn't get a refugee status. They only got a temporary status, which allows them to work, and it has to be renewed every 5 years or so on and so forth. It's not really they're not being called refugees. Only 10 people, and you have to understand that the asylum seekers requests. I think there were like 14,000 asylum seeker requests. 7,000 or 6,000 something were rejected automatically, and the rest nobody answers. A lot of us at the moment, as I said, there's 35,000 asylum seekers. A lot of people did not put in their asylum seeker, their refugee status determination. They did not ask for it because of many reasons. First of all, one of the reasons is that they were told when they came at the beginning that there's no need for them to do it. They're under group protection. There was nobody to give the asylum seeker request. And then in 2013, the state decided that it will allow people to put in their asylum seeker request, but it didn't tell anybody. So the refugees did not know that. Only in 2014, the big protest that we had, they decided to do it as a symbol, try to do it part of a demonstration to submit their RSD form. And then we found out that actually for a year now, Israel is accepting them. But then Israel turned around and said, no, you cannot give in your RSDs because you've been over a year in Israel. And can't. So most of them, like, back and forth, so they understood.
So it sounds like Kafka 2.0.
Yeah, exactly that number.
Now, I understand that the government of Rwanda has actually reacted to these demonstrations. What
Yes,
did
they
they?
have. Yesterday they closed it, and also we did yesterday. We did something together. We arranged for demonstrations with Israeli activists in Berlin. They had a demonstration in front of the Rwanda embassy in Berlin. So we did it together, and we also had a hashtag tag. We called for a hashtag tag, as you see, there's refugees for sale. Yes, first of all, the Rwanda, there's a petition. We made a law petition. Activists created a law petition asking the government of Israel to react to the fact that we understand that there's some sort of new agreement with Rwanda, and we want to see that agreement. And we also said that if we're going to pay from our tax money 5,000 shekels for dollar for each refugee that's sold to Rwanda, we think it's just something that's our tax money. So we want it to be created by law, not just by some sort of regulation done. So this is a petition we gave. We sent this petition. We sent the petition before today. We submitted it to court, but before we send it to Rwanda, we translate it and we send it to Rwanda, and received a letter from somebody, the counselor for the parliament in Rwanda, and he was like more or less like, we, as you know very well, there's no agreement with Israel, so we have that official answer. Today, and then during these last weeks, we had all kind of minister of, how do you call it? I forgot, foreign affairs in Rwanda said, or her deputy said, there's no agreements with Israel. So we've been hearing Rwanda claiming there's no agreements with Israel. Today, the government of Rwanda tweeted in their official Twitter that there is no secret agreements with the government of Israel regarding acceptation of asylum seekers. And it's really, really important because the Supreme Court in August or September this year has declared that it's okay if Israel deports the infiltrators out of Israel. It's okay by the Supreme Court. But the problem is that the accepting country, the so-called the third country, because we couldn't mention it in Israel. The third country, the third country has not agreed to accept these people if they've been forcefully deported. So actually the Supreme Court kind of laid out the path for Benjamin Netanyahu, telling him, if you want to deport these people forcefully, you have to change the agreement. And that's what kind of Netanyahu did. He met with Kagame in the UN, something convention, I don't remember what it was. And he came back to Israel and he said, I have an agreement now with Rwanda. Okay, now he's speaking about it openly. And this agreement allows me, and Rwanda says it's okay with receiving refugees from Israel. He doesn't call them refugees, he calls them infiltrators, that are being deported forcefully. So I can put them on the plane chained if I want, and Rwanda will accept it.
Wow.
And on the other hand, you keep hearing Rwanda saying, no, we haven't, that's not, there's nothing like that. There's no agreement like that. Uganda has also sent out a few, half-official statements where there's no agreement with Israel. But we know for 4 years now, there's been between 2,000 and 4,000 people deported to Rwanda and Uganda. We know that most of the people were forced out of Rwanda, forced out of Uganda, and they had to continue to this journey where they ended up in Libya. Our testimonies is most of the people that we heard. We have two states testimonies. When I was in Uganda, so I heard those that were pushed out of Rwanda and those who had problems staying in Uganda. And then I heard the testimonies of those who reached Europe, and they give me horrific stories about what happened to them on the journey, how they were tortured and how they were pushed out from country to country and how they ended up in Libya being tortured and how many of their friends died, either in the Sahara or in the sea. I have an Eritrean that told me we left Israel 10 people, 10 of my friends, we survived 3.
Wow. Now, I know your time is limited, so I just have 2 more questions. If our viewers want to support your efforts, what's the best thing they could do?
Okay. Well, I think that Israel does not really care about the pressure. The government of Israel does not really care about the pressure that's coming from inside. And actually, one of the optimistic things about what's happening is that lately we see a lot of petitions from doctors and lawyers and academic people and artists or all these kind of people. This is the first time I remember people signing on petitions and saying we're against the deportation of asylum seekers or refugees or whatever. And I think that's causing some inconvenience, but the most it is. We need pressure from outside. We need pressure from outside of Israel, telling Israel that, if Israel continues to deport people, it has a price. It has a political price. It has, I don't know what kind of international price that people will tell. I don't know. There was this, how do you call it? I'm sorry. Somebody that supports Israel, not Low. I don't remember, Joey Low. I remember him, and he's a high-tech person. And he said, I'm going to stop all the funding I'm sending to Israel if this is going to continue, because I know the refugees. I know them. I met them. I met them when I was in Israel. I'm supporting some of them. They're studying in universities, and if this continues, I'm going to stop supporting. Whether it's, I don't know, any kind of pressure, all kinds of pressure. And also I think there has to be a lot of pressure on Rwanda, because we see that pressure on Rwanda. It's working. Rwanda doesn't feel comfortable with this issue.
Mm-hmm. And I've come across these activities from David Sheen, and now from this group or the page on Twitter, Refugees for Sale with a number 4.
Yeah, we created this page, yeah.
And those are the best ways to find out about this issue?
I think so. I think so at the moment. I mean, there's not a lot of people that are involved with the issue of asylum seekers in Israel. Israel keeps saying, we have so many problems. The asylum seekers is something that, most of the people in Israel are not even aware of who they are. And most of the people in Israel believe they're infiltrators. They believe the government. So there's not a lot of writings about it. And it's
infiltrators meaning people secretly coming in to do harm to the country.
Not secretly, illegally coming into. The image of them crossing the border from the Sinai Desert to Israel illegally that's what the government wants. Netanyahu calls them infiltrators, thieves, border thefts. He keeps saying all these demagogic things about these people, where I don't know of a refugee around the world that comes to customs and says, hello, I'm a refugee and I came from. People take the border, and we know that the convention talks about the fact that somebody can go through the border illegally, but the minute he is in the state and he says, I am an asylum seeker, I need protection, then the legal status is now in the hands of the state. The state has to check his asylum seeker request. The minute the government does not do it, the people that were committing crime is the government of Israel, not these asylum seekers that fled for their lives. We didn't discuss about why they ended up on the border in Israel. Many of them did not want to end up on the border of Israel. They had a different route. Some of them were kidnapped and from Libya. Some of them were kidnapped from the refugee camps in Sudan. Some of them were kidnapped from Eritrea. Some of them started the way for a different route, and they ended up having no choice and turning around and taking the ground route. Some of them were in Egypt, and we're talking about 2005, the Mustafa Mahmoud, what happened in Mustafa Mahmoud, where in front of the UNHCR, a lot of the Sudanese that never decided to come to Israel were pushed out of Egypt, literally pushed out of Egypt to the Sinai Desert. So people didn't come to Israel because they wanted to come to Israel. People came to Israel because they had no choice. They were fleeing. All the roads were closed. Sometimes they had to take the route to Israel. And none of them is asking to stay in Israel. All of them are saying, we will go home the minute we can go home. But please give us protection till we go home.
I understand.
Or till we're able to go home. And the other thing is really the situation is when you think about Israel that has over 8 million citizens in Israel, and you're having just a small group of, at the moment, 35,000. The maximum people that were in Israel at the maximum people in 2012, 2013, you had 54,000 asylum seekers. That's not really a lot. And you have to also understand is most of these people haven't received from Israel nothing, no health insurance, no access to health, no access to education, no access to housing. They took care of themselves. They found their own housing. They're all working. They are working from morning to night. I'm sitting now in a coffee shop, and all the people that are working are trans. They are working, and the Israeli, and actually the people that, the Israelis that hire them, for all these mundane jobs, unfortunately, but really, really trust them. They've been with us for 10 years. Actually, now, today, I was invited. I can't go because I'm working, but in There's one of the bars in Tel Aviv, one of the very well-known bars, and he's doing an evening where they're, preparing their food and giving their music, because owners of coffee shops, of hotels, truly, truly endear these people.
Wow. I don't want to take more of your time. I know you have a lot of things to do. I really appreciate you speaking with us.
Thank you, and I really hope that, it will cause something. Some people will rise up to do something. We really need people's help in preventing this. People are being sent to their death.
Thank you again.